Here's the first part of Lab 11, which is all about rocks. This first part's going to cover through the igneous rock part, and then the next part will cover sedimentary and metamorphic rocks. The lab assignment is listed in Canvas as usual, and for this particular lab, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to do all the questions in activities 1 through 8 and all the questions in the lab report. The only thing that's a bit uncertain is which rock samples you're going to look at for each rock type. And so I'm going to make that clear in these videos. If you came to PCC and you got a rock kit with your mineral kit, then you can open up those rock kits. You'll notice that they're in different baggies, and you'll have one baggie that has rocks with numbers on them, and they begin with the letter I, and those are the igneous rocks. And so here I have a picture showing them. Yours might not look exactly like this, of course, because you might have smaller or bigger pieces, but you'll have I1, I4, I7, etc. These numbers right here. And we're not going to be looking at all of these. Definitely the ones that you'll have that we look at in the lab, you can take a look at more closely since you'll have them in your hand. If you don't have these at home, don't worry. There's another way that you're going to be able to look at these rocks. So that's not going to be an issue if you don't have them. So you'll want to keep all the I rocks together. In another of the two baggies, you have the sedimentary rocks, which begin with the small letter S. And then in a third bag, or a fourth bag, I guess, you're going to have the metamorphic rocks, which begin with M. And so I've indicated here all of the numbers that you should have in your rock bags. You will also somewhere have a quartz crystal and a feldspar crystal, and those are just repeats. You already have them in the mineral kit. This was something that we handed out to a different class that didn't have minerals, and so we included those two very common minerals. So where do you find the rock videos if you don't have rocks at home? And even if you do, you're still going to need to use these videos. Here's our module page at the top, and these were the videos for Lab 10, and now these are the videos for Lab 11. And there are igneous ones, sedimentary ones, and metamorphic ones. And these are all Excel spreadsheets. So let's go look at the igneous one. If you open it up, you can either click on one of these links here. We have I1, I2, I3. They each correspond to the rocks. Or you can download the Excel spreadsheet yourself. If you do that, then you get a spreadsheet that looks like this. And then you can cut and paste these various links into a browser. Let's look at I4, for example. And what you'll see is a YouTube video. This one is 55 seconds long. And somebody's going to show you rock sample I4, and they're going to rotate it around, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about the key features to look for in this rock. Remember, if it's an I, it's going to be igneous. And again, this might not look like the I4 that you have, because we tried to get the same kind of rock, but it wasn't necessarily the same exact kind of rock, if that makes any sense. So these are videos you're going to use to identify the rock samples, especially if you don't have them at home. Also, remember that if you have them at home, you want to get a hand lens and examine them along with the videos. Use your hand lens right up against your glasses or right up against your eye. Move the rock into the lens. So put the lens up first and then bring the rock up closer and closer until it comes into focus. And that's going to be really helpful for seeing some of the details. All right, so to the lab. First of all, the lab begins with a discussion of the rock cycle. And I already went through this page quite extensively in the first video in the series on rocks, the video 9b.1. So if you haven't watched that, you should definitely go back and watch that and look at my rock cycle description. Your first question then in activity 1 is to sort of repeat this information here, and the blue boxes are going to have the main components of the rock cycle, including the various types of rock. And then the orange circular boxes are going to have processes that link the various parts of the rock cycle together. And those are in these arrows listed here. In fact, this one right here, weathering, transport, and deposition, is this one right here. And then you're going to answer these next 3 questions about the rock cycle. And I haven't printed all of the pages here. There are a few pages before page 79, which gives you the information you need to answer these questions. The questions continue on the next page. Then on page 81, we start to focus on the igneous rocks. There are 2 main characteristics that are used to identify igneous rocks. Number 1, I've circled here to emphasize it, is texture. And texture means how large or small are the grains, the minerals that are in the rock. So we can have a coarse grained texture, which means large grains, like you can see in this picture. A fine grained texture, which means like this one where you can see almost nothing that's a grain. It's just a kind of solid color. We have a porphyritic texture, which has both fine and coarse grains. So if you look at this here, there are large white colored grains, but then the surrounding dark material is very fine grained. And so we call those white, larger crystals phenocrysts, and the finer grained material around it the ground mass. Hopefully you've already learned that the size of the crystals is related to the cooling rate. So coarse grained textures occur when there's slow cooling and lots of time for minerals to get big. Fine grained textures often occur when rocks are erupted from volcanoes and the lava cools very quickly. These kinds of textures usually indicate two stages of cooling, where there was some slow cooling that allowed these white crystals to grow big, and then before the rest of the magma solidified, it was erupted from a volcano and the ground mass formed. Another texture that you'll see is a glassy texture, and that's shown here for a piece of obsidian. Obsidian is volcanic glass. And then there are some other textures here. Vesicular means there's a bunch of holes in it that are formed from gas bubbles, and a fragmental texture means that there's fragments of rocks and maybe some pumice and such, and that's usually a volcanic texture as well. So then you're asked to look at these pictures here and answer a couple questions about texture. And that continues on the next page. Now at this point, if you have rock samples from PCC, I'd like you to take your igneous rocks and I would like you to place them in piles as best you can of coarse, fine, glassy, and then you can also have a pile of maybe you're not too sure. So go ahead and pause the video, and if you have the rocks, go ahead and try that. Okay, so here are my piles. I've got a pile of coarse grained where I can see the actual minerals, fine grained, number 7 is glassy. I don't have a pile that's not sure, but this one down here is unique because there's actually 2 different rocks on it. This is number 21. And most of this rock is fine grained and vesicular. It's got all these holes in it that were made by gas. But if you look right here on the edge, and you'll have to look carefully on your rock as well, you'll see a bunch of green crystals, green minerals. And here's another edge on view. They're very, very large. These are olivine crystals. And this is actually what I want you to look at. These are 2 different rocks that are sort of attached to each other. And this is the part that I want you to examine. Here's another picture of it. There are also some black minerals in here. So number 2, when it comes to identifying igneous rocks after texture, is composition. And composition is based on the mineralogy. So I've skipped from page 83 to 85 to show you there's a little activity here based on composition. So again, if you have the rocks from the PCC kit, try to divide them into felsic, which is light colored, intermediate, which is intermediate color, gray or salt and pepper, mafic, which is dark, and ultramafic, which is very dark or even contains a lot of green olivine. Olivine is a very ultramafic mineral. And here are my piles. Felsic, intermediate, mafic, and then that one, number 21 with the green stuff is ultramafic. Here is our rock identification key, and I also talked about this in the video 9b.1. We have texture listed here, so different rows indicate different kinds of texture, and we're going to focus on coarse-grained and fine-grained and glassy for the obsidian. And then compositions listed across the top in columns. So we have felsic, intermediate, mafic, and ultramafic. And then the overall color of the rock is indicated down here. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill out this rock chart for various rocks. Let's start with rock I1. If you have that rock, you can take a look at it. This is what it looks like up close. It's a coarse-grained rock. I can definitely see minerals, and there's a lot of quartz in here. There's feldspar, and then there's some biotite as well. This rock is definitely in this row coarse-grained, and so I'm going to put for the texture that it's coarse. Because it has quartz and feldspars and it's light-colored, it's going to be in this column here, or felsic, so we'll call it light-colored. The dominant minerals are tricky because we've only just started to learn minerals. I just mentioned quartz and feldspar, but you can also see the dominant minerals that should be in a rock listed up here. And so the rock name here is granite. And so that's the kind of game you're going to play. Now, we are not going to look at all of the 24 igneous rocks. We're going to just look at these. So pause the video and go ahead and write down these numbers. These are the ones that I want you to identify. Also, I'm going to tell you how many of each rock name we have so that it makes it a little bit easier. So you have 2 granites, 1 diorite, 1 gabbro, 1 peridotite, 1 rhyolite, 1 andesite, 2 basalts, and 1 obsidian. So let's go ahead and do another one. Let's do I-21. This was the one I showed you that had the green crystals. This part back here is actually a basalt, but we're not going to name that part. We're going to look at these green crystals. So first of all, definitely they're coarse grained because we can see the minerals. So we're going to put coarse. Because it's mostly olivine and some black mineral, which is pyroxene, it's actually ultramafic in its composition. So it's dark, and green again is considered dark. So we have olivine as its primary mineral here, and that means this rock is called peridotite. And this is actually a piece of the mantle. All the rest of these rocks are from the crust, but peridotite is from the Earth's mantle. And that's a tricky one, so that's why I wanted to go ahead and do that one for you. Let's do one more. Let's do I-16. Now this one you don't have in your samples if you have a kit from PCC. So let's go look at the video. Remember, to go to the videos, you go to your module page where mineral and rock videos are. You go to igneous, you open it up, you click on I-16. And here we have a 46-second video. The person rotates the rock, talks about it, and one thing that he does is he shows you these green olivine crystals. He doesn't name them as olivine, but I'm telling you that these are green olivine crystals that are in this rock. Otherwise, this rock is very fine-grained. I-16 is going to be in the fine-grained row, so we'll put fine here for texture. And it had olivine in it, and it was dark colored, so we're going to say that it's dark. And that means this rock is a basalt. And again, we have olivine and pyroxene in there, which is something that I know because I can recognize it. But if you can't recognize it, that's okay. Just do your best to try to figure out what minerals might be in it from the compositions listed here. And this rock is a basalt. So that's the game we're going to play. Now I'm going to revise these numbers because we've just named 3 of them. So now you only have 1 more granite, 1 more basalt, and we've done the peridotite. So you have 7 rocks left to identify, and you're going to use the videos if you don't have the rocks, or you're going to use a combination of the videos and the hand samples. And after this, you can move on to the next video, which will get us through the sedimentary rocks and the metamorphic rocks. Good luck.